Yep, I'm ready. Thanks everyone for coming to the early meeting of the BUEA. I think we had 2 sets of minutes in our packet. Let's just talk about them one at a time. The March minutes, has everyone read them, and are there any changes? If so, if there's no changes, I'll take a motion to approve the March minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, and Jane, you'll have to do
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to do an attendance. I'll do that next after those.
I'm sorry, Holly, can I borrow pen and paper to track? I'm sorry, I just came empty-handed.
Yeah, we didn't do roll call.
Yeah, I forgot it.
Do you want to back up and do
Yeah, you can just
roll
do it
call
now.
or wrap
Okay.
up this vote first?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do roll call.
Okay.
Paul, do you want to start?
Paul Ash.
Julie Donham.
Karen St. John.
Jackie Yenna.
And online?
All right.
Kate Rosenbarger.
Okay, and
And Jane Cooper Smith, staff,
Chaz Lottinger, staff.
and Holly Warren is here as staff as well.
yeah, okay. All right, so back to the March minutes. We have a first and a second, so we'll do a roll call vote.
Paul Ash,
Yes.
Julie Donham,
Yes.
Karen St. John,
Yes.
Jackie Yenna,
Yes.
Scott Wright,
Yes.
and Kate Rosenbarger.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, same thing there. We had April minutes in our packet. Are there any changes to the April minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Jane, you want to do a roll
Yep.
call?
Paul,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
and Kate.
Yes.
All
Thanks.
right. Jane, I'll turn it over to you. Financial reports.
So financial reports, we're looking at the income statement or profit and loss statement first. We had a small amount of loan interest come in May. No late fees, a heavy amount of zone membership fees, so we're up to a total of $188,216 for that. You can see January to May, we've funded a previous Zone Arts grant and then mill day passes. Going forward to scholarships, May we didn't fund any, and in June I have funded, or I will have funded, basically the annual allotment of resident scholarships and then a couple of DEI scholarships, so there will be more action in June. Net ordinary income is $169,423.83. Total interest income of $121.65. Any questions on that page? I think we have a separate budget versus actual. And Cheryl was out, which I think that's the third report. So we'll talk about its format when we get there, I guess. And then balance sheet, total current assets, $2,535,943. Other assets are long-term notes receivable, and that balance is $305,521.79. And some of these have started. The rapid response loans have entered repayment, and I'm looking at this list to see if any of these have been paid in full, and I don't believe that they have. But they are in repayment, so June will look quite different for that as well. Those numbers will start to change. Total assets, $2,841,465, and total liabilities and equity is the same. And then budget be actual, this is somewhat in the format that was requested, but I think we are still looking for total income in the budget, so, well, no, it is there. Okay, I was curious if that zone membership fees had been added, so it looks like they have.
So is that what we were supposed to get, 262, 867?
I just need to compare it with my spreadsheet. I suspect that might include those RDC fees that don't actually belong to us.
Okay.
So I just want to double check that it's an apples to apples
Because
number.
I would have figured this 188, just timing wise, was about all we were gonna get for the year, but I wasn't sure.
Mhm. Yeah,
And then I didn't understand
I think
why.
262 is high, so I think it contains those RDC fees. So let me,
The 262 was our annual budget number.
oh, so it's just a lump. I didn't know if she had entered the individual
So
eases.
that's what we originally did on our budget. So we had to
Okay.
have something to base that on.
Based on extant 2022 EASIDs.
Yeah, so that's the total anticipated.
So then we've got several that aren't collected then.
Well, let me look into that and see.
Well, I mean, that's what I would say.
Mhm.
Is, looks like about 75,000.
It's like what is missing or what does 262 include, and it should not include the easements then, or the RDC payments then, but let's just, let me ask that.
Or do we know how many easements are delinquent now?
Yeah, we have a
Okay.
master spreadsheet where we're tracking everything,
Okay.
so, I may just reply via email to the board so you can have that information since I won't be at the next meeting. Somebody will have that information, but I'd also like to just,
So this says zone membership fees of 262, 867, and the budget called it EASID income, 262, 867. Yeah. I didn't know if it helped you with your question.
I guess EASID income could, no, I don't know. Let's,
I wouldn't have budgeted that, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we would have pulled that number out of the air. That's,
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
yeah.
Okay. Moving along, how do you want me to present this? Do you want me to read through line by line or just highlight the things that have been activated?
I
so
would
far?
look at the things where we're like, maybe that there's a deviation to the budget where I would look at those lines. I mean, so under total grants, that's just stuff that's not dispersed, correct?
Right. But we're talking about many or multiple of those programs today.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And then in other expenses, you know, that payroll expense is our marketing assistant that's been approved by the board. Chaz and I have a job description. We're ready to post an RFQ and are waiting final approval from legal, and that has been the same status for a while. So Holly is aware of that too, and I think it's going to help us move that along. So hopefully. Moving along, the professional services fee is the fee that the BUEA pays the city for management. So,
And when do we do that? What time of the year?
there's no set time, so I could try to process that before I leave if the board would like, or you could kick the can.
I just don't know when.
Let's just do it so it's done. Okay.
I'm sorry,
Uh-huh.
you're saying that the professional services SB, isn't that the small business?
Business
That's
development.
that's a grant.
What we just approved
Yeah.
for,
Well, that's in the wrong place then.
Yeah,
Professional
because-
service, that professional services line is for the administration fee.
Well, it's
So-
up under professional fees above it. There's accounting, management, project admin, total professional
Yeah,
fees.
so the SBDC is a grant, that's misplaced and should be moved.
And we've already approved that, correct?
Yes.
We just haven't paid it out.
Right, and I'm waiting on approval for the MOU for that.
Yeah.
So.
So that professional services line can just, the whole thing could just go away as a category?
Yeah,
Because we have professional above it.
okay. Okay, great. Well, this is a good exercise. Okay. So then moving down, you can see business scholarships, DEI training scholarships, resident scholarships. The DEI training and scholarships is 15,000. That is listed above in grants miscellaneous. And I think we wanted to move that total to DEI. Okay.
Honestly, she could just go through this if you gave her a copy of our budget that we approved. And if she
Okay.
could just check her work and compare it, and then we don't have to, because
Yeah, because it looks like she's guessing at where
she's
to
got some
slot
stuff in,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's just keep moving through and see that Lemonade Day has been funded.
Yeah.
And then total interest income is about, coming close to half, and we're partway through the year, so that makes sense. So, all right, so I just hear the takeaway as this needs to be reviewed. I don't know, Julie, if you would want to vote on these. I don't really think you should.
Well, I don't mind voting on the balance sheet and the P&L. I just think that versus the budget needs a little work, so.
Yeah, it's easy.
We're getting closer.
Yeah, but
We're-
it's easy to just move them to the next
Okay.
meeting so that we're not approving budget v actual by itself.
Okay, we can
Okay.
do that.
So we've reviewed the financials, but we'll move them to August.
Anybody have any issues with that?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Director's report?
Yeah, director's report, largely includes that rapid response loan funds are coming back in. Our plan was to select a loan servicer so that borrowers would have kind of an easy time dealing with repayment and getting updates, and we have had trouble with responsiveness from the servicer that we selected. So I'm working with Brian Payne to see if there's a different servicer that we should be using, investigating a local, actually zone business that might be able to provide a solution. But all the feedback that Brian's getting is pointing us back to this CDFI servicer that is non-responsive. So it's a little bit frustrating. In the interim, the controller's office did not want to delay repayment. So they're receiving paper checks from borrowers right now, and we've sent repayment schedules to borrowers
Okay.
with due dates and monthly amounts. So the target is to have the online servicing up in onboarding in August and live in September. But with my leaving, I'm curious whether that's going to move forward.
That's what I was gonna ask, who's gonna pick up the ball for that?
Well,
in the
Susan
meantime?
has been handling it. Susan Coates is our office administrator, and
Okay.
she's been working with receivables in the office of the controller.
Okay,
And the controller's office has really stepped in to manage that.
okay.
So the challenges are that, people are having to either mail in or drop checks off. Their controller's office is not taking credit card payments or automated drafts. So it is challenging for borrowers.
Yeah.
So are they dropping the checks off at the controller's office or with Susan?
It's coming in multiple channels. So some of them are coming to the front desk, some are coming to our office, and some are going straight to the controller. We want them to go straight to the controller, and that's what we've been communicating. But often borrowers want to, it's a big deal, and they want to hand it to a person, and so I write receipts when it does come to, when they do come to ESD, and then we take them immediately.
So who's responsible for the accounting of this when we're just taking paper checks? Who's keeping?
Controller's office.
Okay.
Yeah. yeah, Susan and I, all the receivables are through the controller's office, and Susan and I are handling communication and sending out those payment schedules, which is done effectively.
So, who monitors to see if something hasn't been paid that was supposed to be paid?
Controller's office is sending updated spreadsheets monthly, so we can see who is paid and unpaid.
And how's the follow-up on, I mean, how do you follow up on that?
Well, we're not in process. We let people delay their June payments, and then for July 1st, they were allowed to delay. There are no penalties for June and July.
Okay.
So we're still receiving June
Okay.
payments now. So
Okay.
no one's technically
Delinquent.
out of compliance.
Okay.
Yeah, or delinquent. But come August 1st, that would be when we would see that, and we would see penalty payments start accruing. And, I've been talking with all the businesses, and everyone, from what I'm hearing, everyone is struggling, even though there are quite a few who have paid back in full, but that's on the food and beverage side. And then everyone says they're struggling, and I believe that they are, just because there are so many different economic pressures on small businesses right now. But everyone is making payments, with the exception of 2 businesses, neither of which are zone, really feel like they're unable to pay, and so the ESD is discussing with the city legal and controller's office the potential of some kind of different repayment for them, because they feel really unable to pay.
Okay.
So it's just a challenging
Right, yeah.
economic time. I don't know when would be a good time to start repayment, frankly.
So they're bringing in some kind of monthly payment amount? They're not coming in with a $25,000 check?
It depends on the organization.
Okay.
One borrower made 6 months worth of payments. Many borrowers have paid in full because they don't want to deal with repayment.
So they're writing a check for $20,000 and walking in the door?
Yeah.
Okay. Does your office otherwise get checks, or is that like a regular part of the business there?
Well, it is for the BUEA.
But separate from BUEA? You guys don't, I don't know if the
We
office
do,
itself-
yes. We receive payments for a variety of reasons and
Okay.
track them in a receipt book and online.
Okay.
So we do have systems in place. But again, they are not allowed to linger in ESD. Everything goes immediately to the controller's office because of that liability of having a piece
Right.
of paper.
Do you ever just send them to the controller's office? Like, we can't take your check here, you need to go down the hall and...
Well, the controller's office is closed.
Oh.
Like most of City Hall is still closed to the public, so we're allowed to come in here and have a public meeting. So
Okay,
it
I
often
realize
ends
that.
up, if someone brings ESD a check, it's actually me walking out to the atrium, writing a receipt, receiving a check, and then taking it immediately to the controller's office.
Gotcha.
So,
So they're not even allowed to go down to the
Mhm.
controller's office? Okay. Okay.
but I think you're asking good questions that have to do with the steps involved and then the related liability.
Yeah, just to check.
Yeah,
And you're leaving, and
Yeah.
so nothing about the person
Yeah.
who's the opposite, but just that whole multiple hands and things.
and
so.
multiple steps and manual receipt writing.
Mhm.
And then too, you kind of wonder what's gonna happen when Jane's not here,
Well, it
So-
might
Yeah.
improve.
No, I'm just, will it still be somebody will walk down and walk it up to the controller's
Yeah.
office?
Mhm.
So-
Yeah, I think so, because Susan's here 8 to 5,
Okay.
5 days a week, and, yeah, so, okay, any other questions on that?
Thanks for that.
Yeah, and then I think, that was the main item for the director's report, and then just my announcement that I'm leaving the city. Friday is my last day, and it's been such a pleasure to work with the BUEA, and the BUEA is, of course, the reason I got involved with the city in the first place. Julie and I started in 2016, and it's been just a pleasure to work with everybody. More challenging to make those improvements than I anticipated, but I think they're happening for the most part. And I think that's, yeah.
Have they found someone for your position?
No, the city's HR policy does not allow them to list the job until I'm out the door. So that presents some challenges. But the position description is approved. Alex will be here tomorrow, and I believe it will list Monday. And they're hoping they don't have to advertise it more than 3 weeks. So if you know anyone highly organized, send them our way. And then for the August meeting, we can talk about that later, but I think maybe the board will want to postpone that.
We've talked a little bit about taking the month of August off because it's just a tough month anyway. And with the transition, we thought it might be just give us some good time to kind of get caught up a little bit. So as of now, unless anybody really has any, and we don't really have any, we have potentially one Facade Grant, but they're going to go ahead with it anyway, so it's just going to be us after the fact approving it.
It
so.
would delay their reimbursement.
Yeah, so, but that's it, so. As of now, we're not going to have an August meeting. So.
And then for September, a staff member will run that, and it would either be Holly, Lauren Travis. I don't think Alex can run it since he's also a board member.
Right.
But they'll send information, and I'll start putting an agenda together for that to help them know what's coming. Okay, I think that's it for staff report.
Okay, unfinished business?
Oh, I think I'm sorry, I'm gonna make everyone seasick. Okay, so we can jump to the Johnson Creamery discussion, and in the packet, this is out of order, so I apologize, Holly and Chaz.
Do you want them to go first?
I do, I think
Okay.
it,
Oh, okay.
no, I think the creamery should go
Sorry.
first.
Okay.
I apologize, I don't understand what I'm looking at. So, Peerless, are you guys?
I'm on here.
Okay, is that
How you doing,
Blaine?
everybody?
Hi, Blaine.
Okay, so we have Blaine Reams from Peerless out of Chicago. And then is Gloria, hi Gloria. Gloria Branya Colom is here. And then I can also do a brief introduction before I pass to Gloria. And we're at 12:30, so I apologize for making everyone seasick with the scrolling. So Julie noted that in some places on the application there was $40,000 requested, and in others it was $50,000. So I think the staff recommendation ultimately had been for 450, but I think we'll want to kind of get into the weeds on this one and really discuss what is on the table. So Peerless, this project is the redevelopment of the Johnson Creamery, and then you're also developing the parking lot adjacent on the north side of the building. In the course of the, I don't know if you were in design development or what, but it became clear that the smokestack was unstable and that this would be the responsibility of Peerless to, mitigate the problem. And in partnership with Historic Preservation, they've come to a solution of taking the smokestack down a certain amount. And Peerless, I think, they're requesting support because they've incurred costs beyond what they anticipated in the development of the project. I think from Historic Preservation's perspective, they're happy that the smokestack is being preserved at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's just kind of the broad context, and I'll turn it over to Gloria for details.
So good afternoon, everybody. Do you want a shorter version, longer version, or?
I think short because
Okay.
and then lots of questions.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So we've been in dialogue with Peerless since last year about what to do with the smokestack. It has been showing lean for quite a while. That said, I have a quick timeline. I'm just going to read through it very quickly. But December 9, there was a meeting regarding the smokestack, and a decision was made to issue an order to repair from the city, from hand. In December 21st, the city sent out the order to repair. And then on March 10th, there was an initial meeting with HPC. During this time, there were also meetings with the RC engineers. The original intention was to preserve the entire smokestack. The intention was never to remove any part of it. However, the RC engineers who specialize in this type of work determined that there was no way to stabilize the smokestack at its current height and that it had to be reduced. In multiple things, this has been an extraordinarily complicated process with many multiple moving pieces. That said, one of those pieces was that this declared as a historic district. That way, during the process of it going to Common Council to be declared a historic district, it was also coming to the HPC for a certificate of appropriateness. So on multiple dates, on March 24th, the HPC had a meeting with a COA review. So there's been a lot of stuff happening, but a certificate of appropriateness was eventually provided to remove part of the smokestack. Even with the careful removal of over half of the smokestack, it would be reduced to a height of about 60 feet.
For the uninitiated, the C of A is a critical document, and
Yes.
that's the document that HAND and the Historic Preservation Commission uses to validate the approach that will be taken to the repair. So that
thank
approval
you.
was important.
Yes, no, it was a crucial piece. Without that, they couldn't do it. That said, the certificate of appropriateness calls for the careful removal of the top. So they can't just come in and like bludgeon half of it. They are going to be removing it basically brick by brick and trying to salvage as much as possible. This incurs extraordinary cost. And then they have to stabilize and preserve as much as possible of what is remaining. So that's kind of where we are at. There's a bunch of other stuff that there's just a lot of moving pieces, but that's kind of the core of it.
And I think with that, we'll turn it back to Julie.
Yeah, so I think what we're looking at a couple of different things here. So this request, if it is for 50,000, because in one place it says 40, but if it's for 50,000, our budget, as we all just saw on our report, was 40,000 for the year for all facades. So that's one thing we have to keep in mind is that when we set this budget. As I was kind of thinking, and I'll just throw out my thoughts on this, as I was kind of thinking about it, this facade grant is to improve appearances of outside structures to keep things looking good. We have a, $10,000 per side limit. We have a $20,000 per project limit for other things that we do. And a lot of the expense here looks to me to be to take it from the 140 or 160 feet down to the 60 feet. Is that pretty much correct, or?
Yes, that is correct.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Oh, no.
I mean, there's also going to be extensive tuck pointing on the remaining 60 feet of the building, or the smokestack.
Yes.
There's plenty of mortar and I'd say a lot of the bricks that need to be addressed as well. So there's quite a bit of work on the remaining 60 feet of the smokestack.
Basically, what Peerless is trying to do, and what we're working with them, is to make sure that some of the smokestack exists and that it all doesn't collapse.
Okay.
That's where we're at. Is we're trying to save as much as possible because it is a critical situation where not only would we lose a piece of heritage, potentially it could have devastating effects in the area surrounding it, including to the Johnson Creamery and or the residents of Bloomington.
Julie, one point of clarification, the way the grant program is designed currently, and I think where I was staying, Gloria and I would talk about this longer term, but it's currently 10,000 matching per facade with a limit of 20,000 per year and a lifetime limit of 40,000.
Okay.
That's
20,000.
current parameters,
Right.
yeah.
Sue, even if we, let's say hypothetically, we give no money to this, does it still get done?
It will
Yes,
have,
it has to be done at this point.
Okay.
yeah, it has
There's no
to,
negotiating.
it has to be done. If Peerless cannot pay for it, the city will put a lien on the property and do it, but it has to be done.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have thoughts?
Will you still be able to read the Johnson on there, or will that remove some of the lettering?
Unfortunately, that will remove the lettering.
All of it?
Yes, it's just, it is what it is. We've gone around this. This has been a very, very long-term complicated conversation.
And why is it being capped? Because I'm thinking, you know, we've spent all this money for structures for chimney swifts. And I don't know if there's chimney swifts in there now. Is it capped now?
It currently is.
Oh, it is capped.
There is a cap on it.
It's capped right now,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So then we'll be
That's-
putting a new cap on it with a vent, actually.
Yeah,
That's a moot point then.
Can I ask about what's going to be done with the part of the smokestack is coming down? So will it be taken apart in a way that potentially the Johnson lettering could be spelled out elsewhere? as a
that
historic
is a
facade?
question I think for Peerless.
Okay.
So maybe Blaine can take that one over.
I don't think I can answer that, actually. I'd have to have Joe Patrick answer that. I can get back to you guys on that. I don't know the actual details. Well, I should let the Director of Development answer that question.
Thanks.
Which I'll get an answer for you guys.
Yeah, this, part of it is that this type of work is very delicate, but also complicated, and we don't know, from my perspective, I don't know how much can be salvaged in the end, and their engineers can try to go a little bit more into the weeds, but there's a lot of unpredictability even on their part.
I have a question. So they're taking down, like you said, meticulously taking down.
Mm-hmm.
So is there on your cash that you need of 110, are you getting some cash from selling the historic brick?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because
And if you're going to meticulously take it down piece by piece, the cost of doing that would be even more. So I think they're going to try to salvage as much as possible, but in terms of actually like removing it piece by piece, I don't think that's part of the plan.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood. So you're taking like sections by sections as opposed to just.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Interesting. I do just have a comment about the amount. I was looking back at our budget. The 3 years prior to this, we never spent our 40. So for what that's worth, we've only spent 40, 50, 60. Yeah, we've got probably $70,000 of our budget over the last 3 years we never spent. I'm not advocating for funding the full amount, but I just think it's interesting that in 2019 we had 40,000 left in our budget. We had only spent 10, and the next year we had 23 left, so that's 63. The next year we had 14 left, so 77,000 over the last 3 years. We have not activated in our budget. So if someone were to make a case, you know, of the full amount, that it wouldn't historically be the worst thing in the world, I'm just not sure we should spend the whole thing on one project. It's where I'm kind of stuck. I don't mind personally. I'd probably vote in favor of giving them money. I just am struggling with giving the full amount, but then balancing that with the fact that we didn't spend our full amount the last 3 years, so we're just sort of have that money sitting there in a way. Not disrespecting our current budget. That was done as a whole for the whole health of the organization this year. So it's not like that money is parked away waiting to be spent because it went unspent. But it is, I'm sort of struggling with how much.
All right.
May I add context about the Mills August request?
Yeah, because we have another request.
Yeah, so that's small compared to this, but I wouldn't want this project to negatively impact the mill, which is a zone nonprofit with local ownership. I wouldn't want that to be negatively impacted. So I think their request will come in around 2,500. So it's not huge, but
Correct.
we would want to make sure that we can consider that. Jackie, I'm curious what you're thinking over there.
As for safety concerns, it needs to come down, but I got a little bit of problem funding the whole thing, we'll put this over budget, you know.
I could see doing 10 or 20, but over
That's kind of-
20 feels like a lot. No disrespect again to the project or to what it means.
But it's kind of that we set up these guidelines.
Yeah, just
So,
feels like throwing the whole amount into one project downtown, like right downtown next to this building, when our footprint for the zone is much larger. And I mean, even the mill is right there, but there are other places that, you know,
But you can only
businesses
work
that might
around and
need it.
justify a number of things for overstepping your budget.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's easy to do.
Yeah.
You don't want to get into that habit.
Scott or Kate, do you have comments?
I think it's interesting that we, in previous years, haven't, met, what we've set aside, and here we have a project, and I know in budgetary and that type of stuff, everything obviously gets more expensive if we go back a few years to now. But I mean, I think that, there's probably a way in which we could, foresee a percentage of what we've saved or not spent over the last couple of years, to a lot towards this. And like I said, I appreciate, we don't want to pull our eggs in one basket on the downtown, that type of stuff, but we're responsible for a lot of stuff, right? And so this, in a lot of ways, seems worthy. It's a part of our skyline. Obviously, I want to see some kind of renditions and that type of stuff, what it will look like, right? That parking lot will be important. So I want it to get done, and I think we can be a part of it, a significant part of it.
Okay, thank you. Kate?
I would lean toward giving 10 or 20. I guess I don't feel a need to go above the max that we have in our rules. I think it is important, we're just halfway done with the year, so to keep some funds in there in case other small businesses need it, especially with construction costs nowadays being so expensive. So I lean more toward just staying in the parameters of our rules for this.
Paul, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I'm at 6s and 7s on this, but I suppose 20 would be reasonable.
It is interesting to think about, like we're voting on being a partner in the project. We're not voting on getting it done because
It's going to get done.
it's going to get done. So for me, it's not so much like we need to do this or it's not done. It's how much do we want to partner to help get this done.
Any more comments at all? Anybody have any more questions for Blaine or Gloria?
I thought one of the good points, I apologize, I thought one of the good points made earlier, just, I don't know if there's any sort of stipulation, but obviously construction and demolition, that has an impact. But if the bricks could be used somewhere else, in something creative locally, that would be something I want to see.
It sounded like that might be cost prohibitive. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, there's a note from Joe Patrick in here that says individual face brick will be salvaged, cleaned, and palletized at ground level for use during restoration of the remaining column. So it sounds to me like they kind of anticipate recycling that brick in the project proper. Okay, it's 12:45, not to hurry us too much, but we have two
I
more.
can make a motion.
Okay.
I motion that we grant $20,000 as a facade grant to the Peerless project to restore the Johnson Creamery smokestack in compliance with their order from Housing and Neighborhood Development Department of the city.
I'll second that.
Okay. Jane will need to do a roll call vote.
Okay. Paul Ash,
Yes?
Julie,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
and Kate.
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
motion carries. Thanks, Blaine.
Thanks, Blaine. We appreciate you being
Thank
here.
you, everybody. We appreciate the help. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Have a great
thank you.
afternoon. Thanks, Gloria.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. And then I'll start my screen share again, I think, for the arts discussions. All right, Julie.
On to, we're looking at the art grants.
I can start.
All right.
Again, I just want to express gratitude again for allowing us to carry forward those funds into this year. We've been very successful at getting grant applications. So I want to talk first about our arts project grant cycle for 2022. That was the first grant cycle of the year. That wrapped up at the end of March. So for that, and I just want to, so arts projects, so the BAC does several different grant cycles over the course of the year. One of them is arts project. When we do an arts project, the idea is this is a project that has a beginning, a middle, and an end that is going to impact the community. So it has to be public facing. The more people that it affects and inspires and brings art to, the better. So when we're looking at criteria for what we want to fund for an arts project grant, it's okay. Are you doing something cool and unique and inspiring, and are you hitting a great number of people, and are you going to most likely be able to wrap this up in a year? So that's the cycle that I'm asking for your approval on now. So for this cycle, we received a total of 40 applications. That's almost double how many we received at the fall 21 grant cycle, so we felt really good about that. So of those 40 applications, we chose to fund 28 of those. In total, the entire funding for all the arts applications that we gave funding to, that number was $51,874. Of those 28 arts projects grants that we awarded funds to, 10 of those are BUEA eligible. That means that either the organization or the entity that is putting on this project is located in the BUEA, or the programs that they're doing take place within BUEA zone, so many audience members living in that district or spending time in that district are benefiting from it. So those 10 projects, total amount of $22,844. So those are the 10 projects that I'd like to ask for your approval to fund using BUEA funds again. Jane's just pulled them up on.
Holly, I thought
Yeah.
we added Orbit
There's
Room
11.
for a
Oh, I'm
total-
sorry.
So
Oh,
the
okay.
total is
It should be 11. I
25,000.
apologize for that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
25,652.
Okay.
Orbit Room came in a little bit behind schedule in the application cycle, but they just had a really worthy project, and so I think we wanted to allow them.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And we do very much support that one as well. So I'm happy to run through these with you all. Just let me know if you have specific questions about them.
Can you just do like a quick run through?
Oh, yeah,
like,
sure,
one
okay.
sentence about each one?
Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to start at the top. So Lotus Education and Arts Foundation. So I think many of us know them. They are very much committed to just letting everyone in Bloomington experience a diverse type of music from around the world. So two of the main things they do is they do their huge festival in September, but then they also do a smaller project that it's an art making project for individuals in Bloomington to make art that is inspired by cultures around the world. So we would be funding the cost to be able to do materials and supplies and pay artists to do these art making classes for members of the community. Roses Midwest is a new, very cool home apartment gallery. It's run by a trans woman of color, and she is committed to giving artists funds to display their art in her home gallery. Again, this is just, when I think about the Bloomington Arts Commission and who we've historically funded, they've been very cisgendered, white, established entities in the community. Roses Midwest is really committed to giving artists who might not necessarily be picked up in grant cycles the opportunity to show their work and get paid for the labor that goes into making the work.
Holly, can you explain how the home gallery works? Do they have set hours?
They
that
do.
are
So they do have
public?
set hours on a weekly basis. They are also part of Gallery Walk. So people are invited to come into their space on a monthly basis. But in addition to being able to come in the first Friday of every month, they also have by appointment and weekly evening weekend hours.
So is it's in one of the neighborhoods? but
Correct.
Effectively,
Yes.
like advertised publicly?
Yes, it's
Okay.
advertised very publicly. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a part of like the 4th and Rogers Arts Neighborhood District, so it's right across from the Eiffel. So it's actually really nice because there's a bar, Eiffel, and Roses is all in one corner, so that you can hit up all the galleries. So just yeah.
Okay, so, sorry, so this is for a gallery that's in their personal home?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, but it is accessible to the public on a regular basis.
And our funds are going for the renovation of,
The funds will go mostly to actually paying the artists.
How much goes to the renovation of the gallery space?
I will have to look that up. I don't have the
Okay.
budget for that one
'cause
in front of me.
yeah, it says pay the artist, but it also says construction.
Yeah, so it is the house is very cool and interesting and unique, but she is doing some construction just to upgrade it so the art can be more honored when it's displayed on the walls, but I can find the budget for
Do you
you.
wanna, I can keep reading through. Do you wanna
Okay,
hunt
yeah,
for those
I
numbers?
can
Because
look
I
that up.
think when you vote, you're gonna wanna know that.
Yeah,
Am
I
I
will look
right?
that up for you
Yeah,
right
Julie Arn,
now.
okay. So Winnie Chung is the next recipient. Tango with Winnie strives to transcend cultural barriers by embracing musical integrity and diversity of the Argentine tango tradition through live performance, research, and education. Funds will support quality of life enriching and educational programs featuring the music, dance, and poetry of Argentine tango to underrepresented members of our community. And then I'll ask Chad, since you're looking that up. Holly, do you know where those performances would take place?
They take place. So Winnie is, she's great. She performs at FAR in the parks. She has a performance at Switchyard. She goes to businesses, retirement homes, schools. She has a really, what am I trying to say? She is trying to get out there to teach people tango. She is from Hong Kong, and she believes that Argentine tango music really brings people together. So she teaches the music and dance and the culture of it, and brings people together. So yeah, it's at FAR, Center for Contemporary Arts. She goes to school. She goes to retirement homes. She has performances in the park, Switchyard Park. She had one this summer.
So these
and she
would be-
engages. It's a workshop and program. So usually what happens is Boys and Girls Club too. Usually she has a class or workshop where people learn, and then there's usually a performance as well. And she brings in other artists from around the world. Really, there's this trio, the Yaz Trio, that she brought in, which is artists from Argentina, Mexico, and I forget the other country, but anyway, she brings in artists. This is helping fund bringing those artists to pay the artists, and also to help with the cost of providing the community service of going to all these places, bringing the dancers and musicians.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm going to try to keep moving along through
Yeah,
these.
that's
And
okay. We could
expect-
talk
Okay,
a lot
and I
about
can-
these.
I've got Nia's budget up for
Okay.
Roses Midwest, if that's helpful.
Yeah.
So, and this is a little complicated, y'all, so bear with me. So, the budget that is presented is their overall working budget, so it goes beyond the $4,000 that they could ask for us. So, included in that budget is $3,600 of artist fees, and construction is a total of $3,120. So it's almost split even between artist fees and construction fees.
So these are exhibiting artists that are doing, so is there work for sale in the gallery?
Yes, it is.
And so what is she paying for?
She's paying for the labor to create the work.
Okay, so we're paying artists for them to sell their work.
To get income.
Right, but so when you're thinking about presentation of arts, though, the idea of sales of large paintings, which is really what they're selling, those are very expensive. So the amount of these paintings that is actually getting sold tends to be on the minimum size. So basically, this is a demonstration of paying artists for labor to be able to produce these works at all and become better well known, and also to elevate them to a higher level of an artist so they can start becoming more of an entrepreneur and be in a place where they can better sell and show their work.
So facilitating new works.
Correct,
almost.
yes.
And do you think, I'm anticipating board requests, so tell me if I'm out of line, but I suspect the board might prefer to fund heavier on the fees and lighter on the construction, if for the total 4.
I don't think construction is anything that we would fund at all. That would be my opinion.
Well, we have in the past for like Landlocked Music stands out. We facilitated their construction of a stage in their space for a set performance, and then they retained that property so that, and it's a business, so they can monetize it in future.
Right.
So that's comparable in my mind, but because the artist fees are so close to $4,000, I feel like you could lean on that.
And I'm not like opposed to these. I'm just really wondering about the structure of our arts funding, and I think I maybe have misunderstood it or didn't realize the broader definition. I'm well aware of artists and the support they need and the struggle of being an artist and how important it is to our community to have a thriving arts culture. It's really more like trying to understand how we're spending the money for what. So when I look at, say, WFHB, so we're giving them $2,500, proposing to do that for a concert that's open to the public, and it's available to all, as opposed to spending money to pay artists to make art to sell it for money. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just trying to reconcile two very different.
Yeah.
And when you said that it's public facing, I took that to be public facing, like a radio program, as opposed to maybe some of these I'm just wondering about. So, yeah.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think that Rose's Midwest is a very new model and a very different kind of budget. It's something new that we haven't seen before. So, and this is one reason why, and I'm not sure if we'll get to this today, that I wanted to put the Emerging Artist Grant on our agenda to discuss.
Yeah.
Because basically, what we're thinking of going forward is, what do emerging artists needs funds for? So we're starting to go out into the community and ask them these questions, and we're hearing things like, will you pay me for my labor? And will you pay me to subsidize the rent for my apartment if my studio is in my apartment? So I would definitely argue that this budget is a new model, and we're using this year to just kind of find out how comfortable boards and people who put funds into this are supporting these things. And really, this is one example of somebody asking for funds for this purpose. How much more is that need in the community that we just don't know about? And that's one reason. So speaking with Rose's Midwest in particular is one of the reasons why we decided to do more of a focus on emerging artist grants this year, is because we did want to see if there was a larger need for this kind of funding in the future. So I would say this one is definitely, again, when you look at this, none of these, like you say, we're not funding individual artists to do this work. This is very much a new model, and so Roses and the Emerging Artist Cycle in particular are just points that we're using to gather information from and learn how to deal with them in a more structural, process-based way going forward.
And I did want to add about the way Rose's Midwest is run. Yeah, it's funny to maybe pay the artist, but the whole gallery is set up for more marginalized people to use it, and a lot of those people, why they, especially Roses, wants to pay the artist is because they don't necessarily have the money up front to even create their art. So to have a professional show, they don't have the resources to be able to afford to buy the supplies or to present in a way that people would buy their work in that professional level, because they're just underrepresented people who haven't been given the space, who haven't had a chance to create that level of work that they need to be in the art world. And so by them funding the artists to have their shows, they can show at Gallery Walk, they have these open hours, they can actually afford to present their work in this more professional way that they wouldn't have. So that's also what the funds would be going for, to pay them to help to upfront the cost, so they are provided with the resource, right? So
And again, that is why the BAC chose to fully fund this project, is because this is an organization that we see specifically targeted towards serving a community that historically we haven't seen requests for money coming from before this.
It occurs to me too, not to load too much. I feel like we're talking a lot and I want to listen more, but
yeah, sorry.
I wonder too, like what's in our presentation. We have funded a home gallery in the past. It was Abattoir Midwest. We funded them.
Which is actually Rose's Midwest is an offshoot of Abattoir.
Oh, so
Yeah.
we funded the organization in the past. So that would have been, I think that was in the 2020 cycle maybe.
I think you're right.
So I would be curious what those expenses were.
It was a different person running it. That's why it's an offshoot. But it was in the same location.
Yeah, so I wonder if the presentation left out that it was in a home, but it was in a home in the Enterprise Zone next to Butler Park. Anyway, I'll pause there.
And I just have another question, just not specific, but like this conversation, another one on the B-Town Beauty Supply, which at first doesn't sound like an arts organization, but they're talking about the art of hair weaving.
Correct.
And so they want to pay artists to come in to teach that to whom?
So basically, they want to be able, right now, the art of hair weaving is known by a small number of people in hairstyling culture. So basically what this would do, it would open up the opportunity to learn this skill to more hairstylists who live here, so they could offer it in a broader way.
Right. And what's the total cost of their program? Is it $1,000 they need to do that?
Correct, yes, and that pays the teachers to come in and teach a
Okay,
session.
and so the other stylists that are coming in to learn it, are they being charged to come?
They are being charged a minimal
Right.
fee.
So like
yes.
for me on that, it feels a little like, well, you should charge them what it costs to, potentially, you could make an argument that why are you not charging the users to pay the artist instead of
It sounds like they are charging.
I think
Yeah.
Lisa would have the answer similar to what Chaz was saying, that like she's working with emerging stylists who are maybe traveling to get here, and I know that she believes that there is support needed to get the most participation, and she feels there's a tipping point with the fees. And I also know that it seems strange to have a beauty supply on the artist grants, but I will also say the way she envisions her space and thinks about it is as a cultural hub and as a multicultural hub. So she sees it, her like long-term vision is for it to be a center of culture and a magnet for arts and creators and makers. And so I think this is kind of like a way for her to activate the space.
Sure, and that all makes sense. I guess I'm just wondering if she's charging people to come, how much are they paying? Is it covering the $1,000? So it isn't so much like why or I completely understand it. I'm just wondering about, because we have to give this money out, responsibly. And so if someone were to say, hey, hold it, you guys funded a program.
Right.
That the person charged the participants, it covered her $1,000 and you gave them $1,000 anyway. And I feel like that information is maybe missing.
My assumption is that the fees that the fees are X minus 1,000, and that this 1,000 together with the fees that she's charging is covering the expenses.
Okay, because you said that the program itself cost $1,000, and we're giving 1,000, so it's sort of.
She's looking it up, because I thought it was to make it more affordable for people to participate to help
Right.
offset.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought too, so Holly's
Yeah.
looking it up.
That's my confusing
Yeah.
part, it's just that.
So shall I keep reading while we?
Because it's a worthy idea,
Yeah.
it's just how much money do we give towards it?
So we talked a little about WFHB. Heartland Community Reconciliation Center is located at Dodds and Morton. Heartland Community Reconciliation Center's focus is the reconciliation of social conflict. It's an organization formed to increase knowledge and understanding of local level issues concerning deep causes of social conflict by exploring innovation in education and the arts. Funds will support a 10-day educationally driven collaborative arts exhibition on the topic of imagining the near future amidst the effects of global warming and climate change. So that's interesting. And it's interesting there too, we don't have detail about their fee structure or allocation. I'm sure the overall grant does, the application does, but in the nutshell, it's like we can't pull it apart because it's just funding the overall thing.
But they're a nonprofit,
Yes.
right, as opposed to a
Yeah.
business.
For profit,
Yeah.
yeah.
I worked with them in the past at FAR when they did their 10-day thing, and they pay the speakers and they pay to get supplies for like kids to do like workshops on it, and it's free though for people to attend. So the cost is literally just for the speakers to be there to talk, and any like cost of like materials, supplies, and also space rental. They did it at FAR, and FAR charges them. They give them a discount because they're a nonprofit, but they still have to pay. So that's also, in my experience with them, they use it for location, materials, and then.
I'm
paying the
sorry,
speakers.
yeah, we gotta keep
Oh, yeah,
moving.
sorry.
Okay, in the Overlook, we funded Facade Grant at the Overlook. So this is exciting in that it activates that space with a weaving class where students will learn all aspects of dressing a loom and weaving cloth. $2,000. Holly's looking at B-Town Beauty Supply.
I'm still looking, sorry.
You're good. Cicada Cinema has been around for a while. It's a pop-up movie theater providing high-quality screenings of underrepresented cinema, just interesting cinema. These funds will support film licensing costs for their annual screening schedule. IFL applies for funds to support an inclusive celebration of the 10-year, how is that possible, anniversary of the IFL Studios and Gallery with a focus on emerging artists, with artists of color given priority invitation. That is at $1,000. Freeze Fest, visit Bloomington. Freeze Fest is a festival that activates Bloomington with a dynamic, free, all ages friendly outdoor festival during the non-event heavy time of year. I think it was late January, early February this year. Funds go toward artist fees, internationally revered ice sculptors, and advertising and marketing expenses. And that's $1,000. And then the Orbit Room Music Journal. Orbit Room books diverse artists and gives them a platform to share their art with an attentive crowd, and helps artists that face discrimination have opportunities for good quality recording. Funds are requested to support to upgrade the audio equipment at the Orbit Room so live recordings are easy to execute and process, supporting a journal of the local musical community in which performers would have recordings of their performances. So it's a great, very cozy space, and I think this allows them to have an archive of the recordings and then share those publicly in whatever format. Holly, are you?
Can I ask that B-Town Beauty be tabled until the next meeting? Looking through their application, I don't see the exact amount that they were charging, so I don't want to give you false information.
All right, so we're pulling that. So then the total is $24,652.
And Rose's Midwest, are we going to revise that? I don't know. How does everybody feel about that?
I'm open.
So I think, my feeling on it is, there are two, proposals within, what we have here that stand out and that we're kind of getting into the weeds on looking into their funds and looking into how their operations and what it's going to be used for. It has a real just kind of, my feeling on it is kind of, isn't that great right now when we kind of dig deeper into certain things, even though we know we're not digging into other things, maybe more established stuff. So, I think everything on here, is, could be valid. It's something we might even be taking a chance on. I think that all the proposals are fine. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I don't have a problem, Scott, with digging into anything when we have to spend money that's, donated money. I was actually going to ask about the orbit room too. So I hear what you're saying, but I guess from my perspective, if we're going to write a check, essentially a check for almost $26,000, I think it warrants a few follow-up questions just for things that, to your point, are new tries. And like, okay, so it's a whole, to Holly's point, as she said, it's a new structure of the way we funded. So I agree with you that it's good to branch out and do things. It's more just like, okay, what is this new structure? How does that work? And so those have been, for me personally, I don't know about Julie, but some of my follow-up questions, that's where those are coming from. And I was going to ask, like with the orbit room, do they have to, like, do they say we're not going to?
Do they have to upgrade? Yeah.
Are we?
Upgrading equipment.
Yeah, and are like we're not going to sell this equipment in 90 days? Like we're buying equipment for them; it will belong to them. Like how do we know? And I don't even know who owns the orbit room or anything.
Well,
but
they're very
like,
attuned to the BUA actually, and they've been wanting to serve on this board, which is interesting.
Oh,
so
nice.
They know who we
Yeah.
are, and they're a great business in terms of their ethics. They're the only restaurant, for example, participating in the Parklet program that just elected to incur the expense of making their parklet completely ADA accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So they're great community members. And
do we put in the agreement like you're going to hold on to this equipment for 2 years?
I mean, we
or,
could. We
like,
have
activate it. I'm not saying they would do it unintentionally, but if we're writing a check of donated money and we're in charge of spending it, it feels like we should ask these questions. It feels like we should request, you're going to retain this equipment and activate it for the good of the Bloomington arts community for a period of blank months, or what, pending it doesn't break, or pending it doesn't get stolen or damaged.
Yeah, I think this is a fair point, and I know historically my understanding is the BAC has been hesitant to fund equipment based on exactly this reason.
Right.
We have many individuals come to us and say, I need a camera to film this, and we're like, okay, but what if happens afterwards? So, I think that's different from a business like the Orbit Room, but I do. So again, this is another like learning point for us. If we choose to fund Orbit Room and say, okay, going forward, if we begin receiving more requests like this, we are going to have a specific expectation in the clause that says you will keep the thing on site for a certain number of time and you will follow up and share that with us as part of your annual grant report to us.
And why would we ask for that this time?
We are asked, they will be expected to do a grant report at the end of the grant cycle.
But to maintain the equipment for a period of time and continue.
That's something we can choose to do.
I think that's up to
Yeah.
I think that's at the board's discretion. I think
Yeah.
2 years would be really reasonable to include in a clause. Or
Is
there's
it-
payback. If they sell it, then there's payback.
Is the Orbit Room a for-profit?
It is.
Yes.
But listen,
Okay.
nobody's making, we are all bleeding right now.
Yeah.
Nobody's making money. If
Yeah.
they don't get to do this program, it just means the program doesn't happen.
Right.
They're a mom and pop shop. They just had a little baby. Sorry, it's just like small business is so hard. And I know that these guys have been really struggling as much as anybody.
And
So
yeah, and
I
it's to do more art stuff to get people into their space and to utilize it. Like, and also there's precedent for equipment because Cicada Cinema was funded through BUA grant for their equipment, and they're still around, 5 years later.
Well, right,
So that's
that
a good
was-
example of like someone taking the equipment and they didn't have that sort of thing, and they've been thriving and they've been doing good in the community. So just saying too that like there's precedent for giving equipment out to places and And I
Although
think
to
these-
your point, you don't really do
We have it in the past.
Okay.
But again, this is a
It's an
learning year.
ABA.
We're learning what people are
Yeah.
asking for and saying, if we choose to go this fund going forward, if we choose
Sure.
to fund this going forward,
Sure.
what things do we need to do differently, like add a new clause to the contract?
Yeah.
I have a tense look on my face only because of the time. I think the conversation is great. So I hear some people more comfortable with certain aspects. It seems like the questions are on Rose's, B-Town Beauty, and Orbit. Were there questions for any of the other ones?
I think I was okay with the rest of them.
I'm okay with the rest. I was just, those
Yeah.
are the three that stood out to me.
And to
Did you have
Scott's
any?
point, I think it is interesting that, I don't know how to describe it. It's like negative space. Like what's not in the description is important, and what is in the description for the ones like Roses and B-Town Beauty Supply is getting questioned because it's there. So I do think that those are two, I'll just note that those are two applicants that center minority populations, and that we, I think those are the proposals that are coming forward. I don't know. I guess I need to stay in my
I'm
role.
not picking things based on that, so I'm just gonna
Yeah,
state
I don't
for the
think we
record.
even know that.
Like, yeah, and there's other ones on here that are underrepresented cinema. Nobody's asking about that.
Yeah.
So I
And
don't
I'm
think.
not accusing anyone of
Okay, it
that
sounded
at
a little
all.
like that was
No.
happening.
No, I'm
And
just saying-
I'm not doing that. I'm simply saying, and it isn't that I questioned it for what was written there. I questioned it for what's not written there. So from my perspective, again, I'm just gonna keep saying, if we're being asked as volunteers to spend donor money on
It's
public
not donor
access
money,
television.
it's earned fees.
Right, but we're a nonprofit.
Yeah,
Right, so it's nonprofit money
yeah.
on public television, and we're being asked as volunteers to really review this. I feel like we are being asked to ask questions.
Yeah.
There is no agenda from me picking things about any particular population. I'm
And I'm
literally just trying to
very much-
understand how we're spending the money,
Yeah.
to the
Well-
extent that Holly started by saying, hey, we're trying some new things.
Yeah, and I
those are the
apologize,
ones we're asking
Brian. I
about. Okay.
certainly would never think that
Thank you.
of
No problem.
you.
I
I
get
don't
it.
mean to
I
say
get it.
that, but I do think it's important that they're minority businesses.
Absolutely.
Which I think we have been wanting to center in our activities.
Completely.
Oh,
Yep.
Would it be?
Years ago, we were having to make these decisions, winnowing through all of these applications. And I was so pleased when we started to hand it
That's
over
right.
to the BAC. You guys actually know Art. For me, Art is the guy who lives up the road.
Yeah.
No,
So it's an old-
I would agree with that, but when this for our arts, it was to improve art visually in our community, to improve our audio programs in our community, and we've got some stuff here that doesn't fit into that. And that to me is what created the question.
Okay.
Would it be helpful for Rose's Midwest to just say 3,600 and just say it has to be for paying the artist? Would that be something? Would people feel good about that?
So again, we're still paying the artist, right? Yeah.
Are there any other ones in here? That's paying the artists.
Freeze Fest.
Freeze Fest is paying. Where's Freeze Fest in here? Paying the artists.
Do they sell theirs though? They don't sell theirs.
No, Free Fest is open to the public.
So my
that's-
problem
yeah.
with paying the artist is they're selling stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that's my problem with that. I don't know.
So are there any others?
Lotus is artist fees.
But that isn't turning around and also selling, right? So if it's a performing artist, I assume we're paying them to perform, they get paid and walk away with our money. But if it's an artist selling an item, they're getting paid to create the item, getting that money, and then selling it for money. I think that's your question.
Yeah.
Right.
Not making a judgment on that. I agree with you. I'm just kind of curious how many are on here like
Well, it's kind of like
That-
double dipping itself.
Lotus is not, Roses is,
Winnie Chung is paying, that's education, underrepresented members of the community. WFHB is not, Heartland's not. We overlook B-Town Supply is not. I think that's the only one, isn't it? It looks like it.
Holly,
Yes.
BAC subcommittee review these
Yes.
in depth?
Yes, we have, so our review process is, we have 2 readers for each of the grants, and then we all spend 4 hours of a lovely Sunday afternoon indoors reviewing these together. The first and second reader are the ones who score them, and they are the ones who present their thoughts on them, and then the rest of the subcommittee, which is about 10 people, all have conversations about their feelings about the grant as well. Then we adjust scores, and we assign funds mostly based on that conversation and how the scores change over the course of that conversation.
And then can you describe, sorry, and I don't want to lose, Karen's statement was differentiating how the artist fees are allocated, which we will return to, but then how they determine which projects would be considered for BUEA funding. Is that location-based?
It is location-based, and again, it's either where the business is established or where the activities are taking place. So for example, with Winnie's educational programs, those are taking place around in several venues around the BUEA zone.
So the point there, I think, for me is that they're not going like, well, I don't know if this is for BAC, but we'll give it.
The BAC is like, these are the best applicants to give money to. That's how we.
And that's a good point. I'm curious how other board members feel. I guess I'm just trying to wrestle with, like, what are we supposed to be using as a framework to approve this? So is it, they approved it in depth with your committee, be it Bloomington, and that should be good enough for us? I don't know if that's it. Or is it, we should be going through and, really reviewing these and looking at each one and deciding if we like them or not? I don't know. Is it, are we paying artists to perform that's open to the public? Like, how many of these are actually open to the public? Can someone go in and watch Winnie Chung, or walk in and see hair weaving, or go into the Cicada Cinema, or go into Orbit Room? So is that how so I don't know. I'm struggling with, like, what's the framework? Is it, they approved it, we're good, thanks for the info, let's vote? I don't know.
I can describe how it's changed over time, because I think that is
Yeah.
kind of useful.
Yeah.
So, like,
Thank you.
to Paul's point, back in the day, we had a subcommittee of BUEA people that reviewed arts grants in depth, and none of us had any arts expertise. And I think there were then 2 parallel, like Holly described that, the time commitment there, and so there were 2 sets of that process happening, one with arts experts and one without. And so the board decided to shift that entirely over to the BAC. And that was during Sean's tenure. And he would present a slate of projects, and we voted them in, I think, pretty universally for several years. And I think that would probably have been what happened in a normal 2020 year. But 2020 was so different. So we're out of practice or out of process by the fact of the pandemic. So if we don't feel like we know what our role is, I think it's because we haven't done it for a while.
That's a good point. So
Yeah.
maybe it is that if BAC, and I'm looking at people who are here remotely too on the board, if BAC approves them, there are arts experts, because I'm not an arts expert. I have a lot of experience, but I do not consider myself an expert. Maybe that's what we're doing here. I don't know.
Does the BAC have our guidelines for our program? Do they know what?
I've been basing it on the guidelines that have historically been in place for BAC, BUEA grants, which is the activity either by an entity that is established in the zone or serving a zone audience.
So that's
Correct.
the only criteria.
Yes.
So it's not public facing, is not one
Well,
of
the BAC, that's the BAC is the public facing. That's where
Okay.
that parameter is going, and that's something that we're most concerned about. Again, thinking about serving a larger public, which would include residents of the BUEA zone.
Mhm.
I'm just looking for our guidelines really quickly to see how those outline. So, what do you think, board, Julie? Where are we in this conversation?
I don't know, board, what do you feel? How
I
do you?
think we need to take time to study it more myself. We've got a whole lot of requests here that we're expected to look at and decide in just a few minutes. There's just too many questions.
Do we want to set out I think we've got 3 maybe that we're questioning a little bit, set out the 3 and approve the rest of them right now? And
I can do that.
What happens to these projects if there's a delay in fund? Are we reimbursing the city? Are they getting their money?
So
or-
the funds from the BUEA would go directly to these. Because the BAC has chosen to fund these, if the BUEA does not fund them, we will use our own funds to give these entities the money.
but if we hold out on 3 of them just to give us a little bit more time to find some more money, or not more money, not more money, more information.
Look, I think we have 2 options here. One is that I just go ahead and pay those 3 out of BAC funds, or I reach out to the artists and say, hey, y'all, I know it's been a little while. We just need a little bit longer. At that point, I can't ask questions. I feel a little funny doing that just because, we've already shared the BAC's review process with them. So I don't necessarily want to hold them up much longer, again, because some of these, again, that we're thinking about, Roses and B-Town Rudy, I don't want to compromise their ability to do the programs that they've committed to doing.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering about, is to what extent are we?
Yeah,
So you're going to fund it in.
Yeah.
May I read the guidelines? Projects must do one or more of the following for residents or businesses with the urban enterprise zone. 1, facilitate involvement in arts and cultural activities. So facilitate involvement is the verb phrase there. Provide an opportunity to participate in the creative process. Advance the quality and availability of the arts in the zone, or celebrate or enhance the identity of the zone. And I think for me, the operating assumption was that advance the quality and availability of arts in the enterprise zone. So that's maybe the more obvious one, but facilitate involvement in arts and cultural activities, provide an opportunity to participate in the creative process, celebrate or enhance the identity of the zone.
It's pretty broad.
Yeah.
So sorry for not sharing that in advance.
That's okay.
Oh,
Believe it or not, I would advocate fully funding the $25,652 because they've already been through this. They're the ones that know this, and I have faith in their ability to judge.
are you making that as a motion, or?
I can do.
I'm just gonna, before you do that, I'm inclined to do the same thing actually, and I know I've asked a lot of questions, just because we do want to get these programs activated. Some of them are, to your point, Holly, they're like tries, like let's try it. So I would be in favor of that too this year, but I would say moving forward, if we're gonna be asked to do this, I think the board might want to have a conversation if we want to continue what we've done historically, which is if the BAC as the art experts make the recommendation, do we go with that and do it? Or do we want to have a more spirited conversation as we've had today and really dig into it? I think as a board, we need to make that decision. I'm inclined this year to go with their recommendation. It's kind of the 11th hour, it sounds like, for you guys. It's for the ones that were a little like wondering about, it's, as to your point, you've gone through the analysis of these, so I would be inclined to do that too this year and request that next year, prior to that, we have a conversation about what we're doing here.
You want to make the motion, and I'll second it?
Sure, I don't know if anyone else wanted to say anything, though. I don't want to step in front of anyone. Caitlin?
I wanted to just chime in really quickly. I kind of echo, Karen, your sentiments here. I am good to fully fund this for this year. It really reminds me of another council committee. I'm on the sidewalk committee where the Planning and Transportation Department would bring us recommendations to fund every year, but we didn't have any kind of rubric to approve that. And so it felt very arbitrary for years, but in the past year, Planning and Transportation created basically an equity rubric, and we all worked together on that. So every project was vetted against that rubric, and then it became like really easy, I think, for folks, well, sidewalks that are on the list, and then for us to just a lot of transparency and a lot of just transparency in the goal of what we're trying to achieve, right? And I think potentially something similar could be useful here moving forward. It doesn't have to be necessarily like maybe so structured, but I've been on a lot of committees where I feel like we arbitrarily make our own kind of guidelines or decisions on what to fund. I don't think we do this here, but just some other ones that I've been on where I'm like, I would like more structure, you know, for like the mission and the values that we're promoting here. So I'm all about like, yeah, working with Holly later, I think, to maybe flesh this out a little bit.
I wonder if you might do that around budget cycle, or maybe even prior to, when's the next grant cycle that they'll approve or review?
So we're going into our emerging artist cycle, which is basically wanted to have the same conversation about that today. So we'll be reviewing those and giving funds for that at the end of summer. And then and that's emerging artists. Then we'll go into our operations grant, which is a little different. So I think we have time, but yeah, I agree. I think what I'm hearing, and I think would be really helpful, because again, I want to make sure I'm giving you the correct information to make sure that you're making an informed decision that you're happy about, is just, you know, a list of criteria for what you expect to be funding. And I think that's negotiable. And I'm happy to listen to you and include that in our criteria as we're releasing information about what we're looking for grant applications going forward. The other thing I would do is maybe we can also set up just a protocol that anytime we do one of these longer review sessions, we always have a couple of guest reviewers participate as part of the long 4-hour conversation on a beautiful day. And I think it might be helpful too if someone from the BUEA was willing to sit in and act as a reviewer, just so you have that inside knowledge and have a more intimate knowledge of the applications. That might be another option we can consider.
And can we share with them the end of project, they have to do here's how the grant went. We can share those with you too to see how successful, if that would help too, to give context, since these are slightly newer things. They have to do that. It's written in the grant, so that is something I think we could share to show here's how it went, here's what the funds were used for exactly, if that also helped to clarify and be transparent.
We're at 1:33.
When is that end of summer that we have to have this meeting by? You said the emerging artists what's your cutoff?
So the emerging artists, we're going to be reviewing applications at the end of July.
Uh-huh.
So it would need, if we were going to talk about using BUE funds for that cycle, we would need to have the conversation in August. But hearing if we are most likely not going to have an August meeting, it sounds like we would just use BAC funds for the emerging artist cycle.
I think it probably deserves a little bit more
Yeah,
conversation.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I think that's a good outcome to review how the process is going, because I do think we blanket approved them pretty fast, and I think Karin asks, like you said, you're not an arts expert, but you are a financial management expert, and so I think these are valid, and you probably do need additional information, and if the board wants to mine things a little deeper, then they
Or
need to be
not.
complete.
I guess that's my point.
Yeah.
Maybe we decide, nope, we're good. If they say, like we've done before, if BAC says we approve of these, short presentation and all the color that goes with arts projects, telling us about what they're doing and fill in some of the color on the projects, and we approve it, that's one of the things the board could decide is totally okay. So, or not.
I'm going to vote no, because the Roses one, I'm just telling you.
That's fair.
So the Roses one, I don't like the funding for people that are going to get paid. I don't like that. The B-Town Beauty, I just have some issues with that. The equipment, if we write it in that we are going to use it for performances or for 2 years, I can go with that.
Okay.
But the other ones, I just have an issue with them. So I'm just letting you know.
That's fine.
So anyway.
I think from a, Larry's not here, but I think you need 5
Right.
positive, or 5 yes votes.
Yes.
So I don't know if we want to do a quick straw poll to see if someone wants to retool the motion to get to a yes, or I'm not sure what and especially we're over, so I'm not sure how to best move forward.
So you're good, right?
I'm
You know
good.
where I am. You're good.
I'm not happy with it either.
Okay. And you guys?
We won't have time.
I'll be a yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll have 4 to 2.
4 to 2.
Okay.
Okay.
So if they retool the motion to exclude B-Town Beauty and Rose's Midwest, would BAC be able to fund those grants?
Yes.
And Jackie and Julie, would you feel comfortable voting
I would
yes
vote yes
at that
then.
time?
I would vote yes. And
Okay.
with the caveat with orbit room, the 2
Sure,
years.
with the clause.
And are you comfortable removing them, or removing them and revisiting them with more information, or are you saying removing?
Well,
And
the
either one is fine, I
information,
just
the
didn't-
information that I have doesn't seem to fit within what I feel are the parameters for us to fund an art grant.
Okay.
So, if there's more information that I'm missing, that I would be happy to revisit it.
So I don't think we can retool it and get to an approval short of removing Roses and B-Town Beauty Supply.
But Holly says they can fund
Yeah, the
those.
VA, yeah, and
Oh,
again,
okay.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's fine, and I think
Okay.
too, like, the time I would need to give you the information, then reconvene a
Yeah,
vote,
yeah.
I think that just,
Okay.
it might be a non-starter at that point.
No, that's fine, people have
Yeah.
opinions, I don't know
Yeah.
if people are gonna be, okay, I mean, I can make that motion that we
Yeah.
approve these grants with the exclusion of Roses Midwest and B-Town Beauty Supply, knowing they will be otherwise funded through the BAC.
Correct.
And that we build into the orbit room that they have to keep that equipment activated for, I don't know how long, some period of time.
2, I think
2 years,
24
pending,
months.
you know, damage, theft, whatever. That's my motion.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second?
Okay, you want to do a vote?
Yeah.
Jane?
Paul Ash,
Yes.
Julie Donham.
Yes.
Karen St. John.
Yes.
Jackie Anna.
Yes.
Scott Wright. Kate Rosenbarger.
Yes.
Thanks,
So
everyone.
That was for how much money?
We'll have
That's a
to,
good
25 minus 4 minus
so 20,000.
20,652.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think there was a lot that came out of that discussion,
Yeah,
so.
this is super
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you for learning
Yeah,
with me.
thanks for helping us.
Yeah.
You did a good job.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead. Do you want to you said the mill grant did not come in.
I think we need to postpone everything else. I
Okay.
told you guys that's in the ballpark of 2,500. It includes, the ones that are definitely within the bounds of the grant are light fixture repairs that need to happen because of tuck pointing problems. That's a no-brainer. They have also had like roof maintenance issues and they want to submit that. And because with like, the cabinet shop was our first one where we funded some roof work, I thought maybe the board would consider that and then do what you will. But I think it would be good to have it folded in since they're a nonprofit and it's a cost that they're incurring.
On the cabinet shop, I think we did a facade grant, or, 2 sides of it.
We called it 2 sides, but it included some roofing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Was I not here then?
I don't know. It included a
It
bunch of
was
stuff.
a few years ago.
It was when Connor was here.
Okay.
So I think that's it. So you guys will have some work coming, even if you skip August, it sounds to me.
It's okay.
Before we adjourn, everybody is aware that Jane is going to be leaving us. Going to go to Catalan as a senior tech writer. Is that correct?
Yeah, another enterprise zone business, so
right.
I'm keeping it real.
Right, so she could focus on writing, which I think it was really something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, this is true.
So anyway, but as she mentioned earlier, 6 years with the BUEA, first on the board as a thoughtful and passionate board member. And
Julie.
then you moved on next to director for the last, I think, 4 years. Has it been?
Might feel that way. It's only been 2.5.
And so, okay, all right, I was just guessing there. So I was thinking through some of the things that you've expanded our outreach. I think we're touching a lot more people that because of you. You've increased our number of board members. We don't have an issue with coming up with a quorum now, which is really good. You've tackled our communications, our image through some of that stuff, and I hope we keep that up. You've just done yeoman's work, great work during the pandemic for helping a lot of companies and small businesses that really needed help, and we were there and we were able to help them during that period of time. You've helped us, we've had a lot of changes to implement with financial reports and budgeting and stuff like that, and you've helped us implement those things.
Baby steps.
Yeah, and then just many other things. I'm sure I've missed a lot of things, but thank you so much.
Well, thanks to you guys for being
everything
here.
that you've done for us.
Aw.
It's been great. So we'll miss you.
I'm trying to receive that phrase. As a Midwesterner, I'm very uncomfortable with it, but thank you, Julie.
But thank you. And if there's no more business, we
Move to
will
adjourn.
adjourn.